In the year 70 of the Common Era, the Jewish capital, Jerusalem, was destroyed by the Romans.
In the month of Av of the year 70, they broke through and destroyed the temple along with the rest of the city, including the palace of Herod. The only major structure left standing was this fortress or citadel.
Throughout nearly 2,000 years of dispersion across the world, the Jewish people longed to be restored to their ancient homeland and capital city, Jerusalem. From exile to restoration. The vision for the restoration of Israel in Britain coincided with the beginnings of the British Empire.
In 1601, the English East India Company was founded. Henceforth, the destiny of Britain, in an economic and political sense, was linked to the East, especially India.
In From Exile to Restoration, Australian author Kelvin Crombie, together with Israeli academics and British and American churchmen, presents the story of the intertwining of the Christian vision and geopolitical factors which led to the restoration of modern Israel. In April 1799, after defeating a large Turkish army near Nazareth, Napoleon supposedly issued a proclamation calling upon the Jewish people to return to their homeland.
The geopolitical rivalry with France at the end of the 18th century coincided with the evangelical Christian revival in Britain, which also coincided with the expansion of British influence across the world. And as the empire expanded, so did the desire of many British Christians to take the gospel of Jesus the Messiah to the ends of the earth.
Wilberforce longed to see the gospel going out throughout the world, and he believed that it was within God's purposes that the Jewish people should have a home back in Israel.
Throughout the 19th century, British society was philo-Semitic, ironically despite pockets of anti-Semitism. And on the whole, British Christians looked and longed for the day that the Jewish people would return to Palestine.
Prominent leaders in Britain, including Lord Shaftesbury and Lord Palmerston, influenced the British government to support the restoration of Israel.
I have to instruct Your Excellency to place these considerations confidentially under the notice of the Turkish government.
Church leaders added their voices too.
Out of the 16 prophets of the Old Testament, there are at least 10 in which the gathering and restoration of the Jews in the latter days is expressly mentioned. They all predict the final gathering of the Jewish nation from the 4 quarters of the globe and their restoration to their own land.
Israel has become alienated from her own land, but it shall not be so forever. I will place you in your own land is God's promise to them.
The expansion of the British Empire led to British missionary activity across the world, including the Holy Land.
British Samuel Gobat was in the regime a long period. He was the one that really, I would say, developed modern education in Palestine.
British Christians played a leading role in the welfare of the Jewish people there.
Everything that has to do with what we call modernization in the fields of health, education, welfare started here in this country with missionary activity.
Intense geopolitical rivalry, including concern for her links with India, Australia and New Zealand, drew Britain into the affairs of the Eastern Mediterranean and the land of Israel.
Control of the Suez Canal, automatically the question appeared how to defend it. The Sinai Peninsula could not form a barrier for incursion of a modern army as it was during the First World War. Turkey supported by Germany.
Simultaneously, there was an awakened interest among the Jewish people for a restoration to their ancient homeland.
Perhaps the opportunity might arise for the fulfillment of the ancient aspiration of the Jewish people and the restoration there of a Jewish state.
The First World War presented an opportunity for the restoration of Israel. This vision was fulfilled with the convergence of the British Anzac victory at Beersheba on the 31st of October 1917.
Late in the afternoon, before the sun set, 800 soldiers of the Australian Light Horse Brigade moved out from some hills to the east of Beersheba and charged in at the Turkish trenches, won the positions and captured Beersheba. It was one of the finest military victories in the modern period.
My grandfather, Eric Hyman, found himself commanding the leading squadron of the 12th Light Horse Regiment. So he would have been in front of his men leading that charge. The only people in front of him would have been the ground scouts who were setting the direction for the charge.
On the same afternoon as the battle, the British War Cabinet in London, unaware of the victory in Beersheba, finally ratified the wording of what became known as the Balfour Declaration.
His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object.
6 weeks later, General Sir Edmund Allenby entered Jerusalem and began British rule over the historic land of Israel.
It was on this ramp leading to the citadel of Jerusalem that General Allenby stood and effectively proclaimed British rule over at least the southern part of the land of Israel. It was these same towers that the Romans had left standing some 1,800 years previously to be a testimony to Jewish defeat, banishment and exile. In 1917, Allenby was representing the very empire that had promised to restore those exiled Jewish people to their homeland. And surrounding him were soldiers from Australia and New Zealand, the uttermost ends of the earth, as well as English, Irish, Scottish and Welsh soldiers.
From Exile to Restoration tells the same story as The Destiny of Britain, but designed for a more general audience. The double DVD album includes the 114-minute documentary, plus extended interviews with some of the participants.
Be seated, please, gentlemen.
It is almost as if the destiny of Britain, in the context of her empire, was actually to be the restorer of Israel, the Cyrus nation in the sovereign purposes of God, in preparation, one might say, for the coming reign of Israel's King and Messiah in Jerusalem.